The Google Big Tent Activate Summit is happening tomorrow in the capital, and the buzz online has been generated less so by Narendra Modi being invited, but more so by Omar Abdullah's tweet pointing out that he too has been invited. And in that very sentence lies the debate. A chief minister built as a technology Goliath thanks to an extensive PR machinery, or a chief minister who uses technology to connect with people personally. So on the social network today, we ask, what leaders does India need? Interaction versus tech-savvy self-promotion. Joining us today on the show, we've got with us Professor Rajeev Gowda, who's an IIM professor from Bangalore. He's also the co-founder of Humara Congress. He joins us from Mumbai. Thank you, sir, for joining us. In the studio, we've got with us Kunal Majumdar, who's an associate editor at Tehelka, and of course, Arvind Gupta, the national head of the BJP IT cell, and in a large part responsible for making Narendra Modi's image as it is today. Thank you all for joining us. Just want to start with you first, Kunal.
The non-political guy? Okay.
Exactly, the non-political guy. Kunal, what did you make of this whole thing about Omar having to point out the fact that he was in fact invited as well?
Perhaps it's politics. What else can you say? I mean, yeah, there is two factors in play. I mean, one is Narendra Modi using Twitter, and Omar Abdullah. There is a distinct difference. One has to point out. Omar Abdullah is much more interactive. In fact, within BJP, I believe Sushma Swaraj is much more interactive on Twitter compared to Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi is always one-sided sort of publicity. If he has to say
even
something.
Interactive comes with a rider, right? Because it's not as if he personally writes tweets. It's always a sort of a machinery that's actually doing that for him, isn't it, Arvind? He's got 13 lakh followers, but has he ever really tweeted anything himself?
See, this is, you're writing, you're talking about an issue which is, I think, a very interesting issue. Somebody writes a book, somebody types it. Now, which is more important? The content, the person who's vetting the content, writing the content, providing the content, or the mindset? And the mindset of Mr. Modi is reflected in every tweet that he is doing. So, I mean, the person who executes that tweet is irrelevant, I think. It's absolutely irrelevant to the discussion.
Okay, Rajeev, want to throw that out to you. I mean, whatever be, whether he types it himself or not, he's 13 lakh followers. Omar Abdullah has only 2.5 lakh followers.
I think authenticity is what this medium really calls for. And if somebody else is saying, okay, I can decipher the mind of Modi and communicate it, that's not what this medium is all about. Essentially, it calls for interactivity. Omar Abdullah does a much better job of reaching out. And, you know, I sometimes wonder, does he do his other job of running the state? But really, it takes a few minutes every hour to sort of stay engaged, to communicate, to be reasonably authentic in terms of interaction. So I think Omar does a fantastic job.
Let me tell you about most of our leaders, whether that is Sushma Swaraj or Narendra Modi. See, it's how you interact, how you engage. And engagement is just not what you see on Twitter. It's on Facebook, it's on websites, it's on blogs. I mean, all this feedback for sure is going back, and something gets actioned about it. And I think that's very important. What you see in public domain, maybe thanks, hi, you know, got it, is not the only thing. And
okay,
our discourse, no, let me complete that. Our discourse sometimes gets limited to what we only do on Twitter or what we see on Twitter. But it's a lot beyond that also.
Okay, of course, today we're restricting ourselves to talking about tech-savvy leaders and what India really needs, and we'll come to that in just a bit. But I think the point that we're trying to make over here is one of connect. Even if you're limiting it to an urban audience, is he really connecting with with the people who are following and the people who are talking to him? Kunal, I mean, there is two ways of connecting, right? One is to actually do a back and forth. One is just to have somebody point out the things that you should be talking about or you shouldn't be talking about, isn't it so?
That's the very essence of Twitter or social media. It has to be interactive. It can't be a one-way street. I mean, that way then why else not have an advertisement? What's the point of having a connect?
It is not one way. See, the hangout session he did has now created a new vocabulary in India. Everybody knows what hangout is. It didn't exist in Indian vocabulary.
Rajeev,
and that was very interactive.
Rajeev, do you think it's time that Congress leaders started being a part of these other technology tools like Hangout, which are a little bit more interactive, perhaps?
Yeah, you saw Chidambaram already go forth and do something on that, or just after the budget, and that actually went very well. Montek Singh Ahluwalia also did a Google Hangout recently. So basically, you're going to see more and more people getting into these particular kinds of avenues to connect, interact, build that bridge between those in office and those who want to engage with those in office. Essentially, Omar is more like a digital native. He's a much younger, tech-savvy politician, while most of the others need a little training, tutoring. But before you know it, you'll find that politicians of all hues will and all ages, for that matter,
Okay,
will probably get in on this.